Hello and welcome back to another episode of my MotoGP 23 career mode, and today we're here for the 16th round of our full Moto3 season for the Indonesian Grand Prix at the Mandalika circuit. Now, if you didn't see the last episode at the Japanese Grand Prix, I do recommend you go check that one out before we do get into this one, because it was a very, very interesting race. Of course, we got took out early on by David Alonso. We managed to remount, we weren't too far off the back of the pack, so we caught back up to the pack, started to fight our way through, and then the ending became utter chaos. It was another one of those races where their sort of new built-in assist that gives them extra grip, is supposed to stop them crashing, just broke after the tyre started to go off, basically. So they started running off the track everywhere. It was absolute chaos, and it did allow us to get back up into, I think, like P6 at the end, something like that, P6, P7. But to be fair, we were like 20th before it started happening, so we did definitely make the most of it, obviously, after a very unfortunate start to the race, and we definitely would have won it if we hadn't had that crash. Now, heading into this round, I have done a bit of testing, so we are back to 120%. We did actually have to turn it down for Motegi, which was a surprise because, of course, the AI were recently nerfed quite massively in a patch, but Motegi must have been a track that they were ridiculous at. But either way, we're back to 120 for this episode, and of course, we've got 2 more rounds to try to surpass Ivan Ortola. We made some decent inroads on him in the last episode. We're now only 30 points behind him, but I think it's still pretty much impossible, unless he has another crash. He did crash in the previous round, but we weren't able to sort of take full advantage of it because of the way the race played out, and I'm not sure where he finished. He may have still scored a couple of points with the way the race went. He may still have been able to get back on in a decent position. But without any further ado, we may as well head straight into the weekend. Hopefully we are on a good pace, because Mandalika is a bit of a weaker track for me, but based on my testing, we do look pretty quick. So at the end of practice then, you can see we're 2 seconds clear of the entire field. Once again, it is like Misano, 120% is just too slow at this circuit. It really does seem like Motegi is the outlier, which is a shame because I was really hoping that it'd be Misano, but based on this, it does seem like they are going to be pretty slow at every single circuit from now on. The whole weekend is actually cloudy conditions, except for the first 2 free practice sessions, which were wet, so that's why I've done FP3. So we should go straight through to qualified 2 with this one, and to be honest, 2 seconds on top of the practice times, we're clearly going to go on pole position just by doing a lap. So looks like we are going to start a pole for this Indonesian Grand Prix, although we have at least got to do qualifying first, so I suppose we've got to give the AI somewhat of a chance, but it's just not going to happen. I think we are going to be very, very easily on top. So without any further ado then, let's get into qualified 2 and let's see what we can actually do for pole position. So here we are then in qualified 2, and as you can see, going through Q1, we've got Tayo Forosato, Mario Agi, Asman, and actually Ortola. I didn't even notice Ortola wasn't in the top 18. I didn't really take that much of interest in it because obviously I was on pole by so much. Well, I was top of the session by so much. But there you go, Ortola seems to be struggling a little bit this weekend, which would be ideal for us because we've still got to make 30 points on him. Obviously, we only need to make 5 to keep it mathematically possible going into the next round, but if we can gain a decent, healthy chunk of points, then we can actually keep it possible. I mean, getting 15 points on him is not out of the question if he finishes sort of 6th, 7th, something like that. So it is still possible if we can really put together a good weekend and he struggles a little bit. So we did a high 1 minute 40 in free practice. So ideally, I'll be aiming to try and beat that one. Just trying to race myself, I guess. I think that's probably what the race will end up being as well. A bit like Misano. I'll just try and do a really quick lap time towards the end and see what we're actually capable of. Like I said at the end of the practice session, all the sessions are cloudy, so the ultimate pace isn't going to quite be there, as of course we've seen over the career mode, the cloudy conditions are just not as quick compared to the sunny conditions. Although maybe in Mandalika, with it being such a hot circuit, the cloudy conditions maybe do have an advantage, because apparently the recommended tyre is the hard, even for these conditions. So in the dry, you'd definitely be thinking a hard tyre. But I reckon I'm still going to go with the soft, even for the race, because the soft does feel fine. Oh, it steps out a bit there, though. That wasn't the most ideal scenario. So here we are then, up towards the lines, about to start our first qualifying lap here. Like I said, the target is that high 1 minute 40. We need to try and beat that, what we did in free practice. So here we are then. What are we going to do on this opening lap? 1 minute 39, 1 minute 40, 40.5. So we did manage to best what we did in free practice. I think that was a 40.8, 40.9. So a few tenths quicker, 2.5 seconds quicker than Ayumu Sasaki. So it probably won't end up being quite the gap it was in free practice. It does seem like they've brought a little bit more pace to qualifying. But to be honest, I think that's pretty much it. I can't see them finding over 2.5 seconds. So as I've predicted, looks like we're going to be on pole position. So they found shockingly little time, actually, between then and the end of the session. Only a couple of tenths of a second. But as I said, of course, I am on pole position. Diogo Moreira is second place. Jan Masia third. Ayumi Sasaki in fourth. And Tatsuki Suzuki in fifth place. But one notable absence from this top 9 is Ortola. So let's have a look where he is. He's down at the bottom in 18th place on the grid. So this is an opportunity. If he can't get any higher than that, it is a chance for us to actually pick up some decent points on him. We could pick up 25 points on him here if he doesn't score, which of course makes it very feasible that we can actually overturn the gap in the championship, which is absolutely unbelievable, because when they set the objective, I thought there was absolutely no way that we were going to be able to do it. It is making me think that when they give you these objectives, I think it does affect the AI, because I feel like Masia was also a bit worse when we had to battle him. Same with Riccardo Rossi. I feel like they just start to perform a little bit worse, especially if you're at a big disadvantage. Like, it knew probably that I was a lot of points behind. So it does seem like Ortola's been a bit slower since we've actually had to beat him. But even still, I'm sure he'll be able to recover from 18th place. I'm sure he'll end up scoring some decent points. After this excitement, he'll probably end up second place. It'll be one of those Portimao style races where he just comes through the pack and blitzes absolutely everybody. But speaking of the race, we may as well get straight into it now. No point messing around in qualifying. So let's get down to the grid then, see what the tyre choice is going to be, and get the race started. So it does seem like the recommended tyre is still going to be the medium and the hard, according to Gavin Emmett, but we're going to go against that, as we tend to, and we're going to go with the soft tyre anyway, because you can see, actually it's a surprising amount taken out of it for one lap, but I tell you what, we're going to be miles up the road anyway, so we may as well actually put a bit of jeopardy into this race by picking a slightly different tyre compound. I'm not actually sure how long the race is. It's probably about 10 or 11 laps. They tend to be that long, but I'm not actually sure exactly how long it's going to be, because in the last game the races were too short at this circuit, so I don't know whether that's still a thing or whether it's fixed, but either way it doesn't give me a very good perspective of how long Mandalika races tend to be. So apparently the race is 9 laps according to the fuel indicator. I did just think that I could look on there, so it might be 9 laps of pretty boring riding for myself. Being on pole position, I think we should be able to pull away pretty easily, but you never know, this tyre change could cause us some trouble.
With the sighting lap safely negotiated, the lights will go out in a few seconds and the Indonesian Grand Prix will get underway.
I must say the performance feels a bit better at this circuit in terms of the actual game performance. It seems a bit less laggy, but there we go. There we've got 2 fierce competitors on our right hand side. The lights are on, waiting for them to go out here for this Indonesian Grand Prix. Lights out, and away we go. You can see the gap currently is 5 points to Ortola if it does end like this, although we've been jumped a little bit by Moreira on the run down towards the first corner. I'm sure we're able to outbreak him, although to be fair, both of them are coming over on us. I don't expect Masia to get through as well. Around the outside of turn 1, we've not actually been able to stick that one down. We've had a bit of contact with Moreira. We've been pushed out a bit wide, and there we are. We're down to P3, almost hitting Masia at the back, so it's actually not quite been the start I wanted. We also got hit there by Sasaki, but here we go, the inside of Masia, back up into P2. And hopefully we should be able to get Moreira into this right-hander. We should indeed. Up the inside we go. Oh, it's close. Actually, we weren't actually quite able to do that one, because we're on a bit of a tricky line. So Moreira actually still keeps the lead for now. And through this right-left, can we try and get the advantage on the exit? I know they're a bit weak through there because they carry a bit too much speed on the entry. Cost themselves on the exit. And there we go, past Moreira, up into P1. You can see Ortola's already picked up quite a few points. He's picked up 4 extra points compared to where he started. So I'll tell you what, that must be some pretty good start from him, because he started down at 18th, so he was like 3 places outside the points, and now he's already on 4 points, so he's picked up at least about 6 places off the line, which is pretty incredible. Pretty good performance there from Ortola. Must be about 13th, 12th or 13th place, judging by the amount of points he'd be picking up now. We're going into this penultimate turn. Obviously, this is the sector that's supposed to try and replicate the Termaster Rio Hondo circuit in Argentina, but in my opinion actually does quite a poor job of it. It kind of doesn't capture the character of it very well. The corners are a bit too tight. I don't actually like the ones at this circuit. I'm not a massive fan of it in general, to be quite honest. I do apologise if you are a fan of the Mandalika circuit, but it's not particularly one of my favourites. But there you go, at the end of the first lap then, 1.3 seconds, 8 laps to go. We should have this one in the bag, provided we don't make a mistake now. And I think even if we did make a mistake, I think we're able to come back through. The advantage isn't quite as big as at Misano. The gap's more like 2 seconds a lap, whereas in Misano, I think there were laps where we were literally 5 seconds a lap quicker than them, which is just ridiculous. It's not really acceptable. You shouldn't ever be able to be 5 seconds a lap quicker than the top AI without cheating, of course. And of course, we're not doing that. It's just crazy how we went from struggling to pick up a win. Like, we hadn't got a win in the first 14 rounds of the season. and then they put out a patch that nerfs AI. We pick up one immediately, have another race at Motegi where, to be fair, was a bit more normal for our career mode. We were struggling a bit more. Then we come here and it's more of the same. But again, like I say, with the advantage is not huge because we're not even 3 seconds in front yet, and we were like 3 seconds in front at the end of the first lap at Misano, so it's not quite as much. And to be fair, there's not as many laps, which obviously makes the race a little less painful for me because we're almost 2 laps done already out of 9, so we're rapidly getting towards the end. And a bit of an update on Ortola as well. He seems to have dropped back down the order a little bit because the gap is now down to 7 points again. So he's actually lost a couple more places. So a great start for Ortola, but it seems like he really doesn't have the pace. And there we go, 41 dead on that lap. So not quite as quick as we went in free practice, but there's no point really going over the limit. I'll tell you what though, it's a bit of a strange order behind us. Morera making some good points there on Holgado, but Holgado's down in 7th place. You see Ricardo Rossi's up in the top 6. I briefly saw that Yamanaka was in the top 8 as well, so a few names that have been a bit further down the grid up in the top positions. Dennis Onshu up in 3rd place. I was spending pretty much the entire last episode, well not the entire last episode, but I definitely mentioned it a couple of times in the last episode, that when we were towards the back, that Dennis Onshu was in that back group with us, and it made absolutely no sense, but he seems to be the real Dennis Onshu this weekend, up in P3, much more like where he would be in real life. Hopefully he could try and actually get past Morera so we can gain some points on him. Not that the championship is really on, even with the advantage we now have, because the points they just have is too many. Even if we win every race, they need to all finish quite poorly for a few races to give us even half a chance. Although Ortola is definitely doing that one, because I mean, to be 7 points behind him in the championship would be ridiculous, because I don't actually know how far we were behind him at the biggest point, but it must have been 60, getting on for 70 points. So if we can actually beat him in the championship, it really would be phenomenal. But the fact that we could even beat Ortola really does underline how good our season's been. I mean, obviously we haven't picked up any wins before they changed the AI, but even still, like, the rest of our season was pretty good. We had quite a few podiums, we had a few races that we probably should have won. We should have won the opening round of the year, to be quite honest with you. If I was as good at the game then as I am now, we'd definitely win that race. Obviously, that was right at the beginning of the life cycle. We'd only just picked up the game for the first time, really, first couple of days of playing it. So there's still a lot to learn. But I think if we had the experience that we have now, we'd definitely win Portimao and probably Le Mans as well. There's a few races, really, where things go slightly differently. We pick up wins even on the harder AI difficulty, but it does just underline we've had a very good season. We've had a couple of off rounds, like we had Saxaring was a poor round for me, Mugello because of the rain, a few rounds really that were ruined by odd events, but there were a couple of weak rounds. But generally, we've been very strong all season, even before this AI patch. So the lead that we've got now is up to 9 seconds, so we should be able to get it over 10 seconds. It probably will be getting on for a 20-second gap by the end of the race, because generally we were 2 seconds a lap quicker. But there you go, that's the championship standings update. 2 points for Ortola, so he's in P14. We've just gone on the green looking at that standing, so I do apologise. 25 for us, so we close up a massive amount. But we're still about 80 points behind Morera if it ends like this, unfortunately. I might see what I could do in terms of bringing back the older AI through a mod or something. I don't know whether that's actually possible. I don't know what files they actually changed to make the AI slower, but that might be something I could consider doing if you guys are interested in me doing that, because, I mean, if you get races like this, they're pretty boring. Like, I'm not commentating on the race whatsoever, really. I'm kind of describing the events of the championship, and I'm trying to just come up with things to say, because, of course, there's nothing really going on. So I do apologise that there's probably some weird cuts here, but there's just so much silence, because I don't really know what to comment on the race. But we're getting up towards 11 seconds now, so yeah, it is about 2 seconds a lap that we're gaining, because it was 9 seconds on the previous lap. So if we do push it, we will be gaining sort of 18 seconds. I don't think we'll quite get to 20 though, unfortunately. I mean, to be fair, my pace hasn't been amazing. I only did one more at 40, and that was actually on lap 3. We did a 40.7, but all the other laps have been in the 41s, although that one was close to being a 40. The rear tyre definitely is hot. I can see why the hard tyre is recommended. I think that's probably why we're struggling a bit, because we're probably having a bit more tyre wear than you generally get in these races. Because, to be fair, this is probably the closest we've had to being on the wrong tyre. Because usually, when it recommends a hard and I've gone for the soft, it's been absolutely no trouble. But here, it does actually seem like it is overheating quite a bit. This is probably the closest to maybe the hard being the correct decision. That's another reason why we actually could have won Portimao as well. I just remembered that we picked the hard tyre, and that did hold me back on the opening laps. And I think if we maybe had enough pace on the opening couple of laps, we'd probably build a bit of a gap and stop Ortola coming, or when Ortola sort of catches us, it's for the race win, and, you know, I'm miles ahead of the rest of the AI, so maybe I give him a bit more of a fight for it. Although, speaking of Ortola, you can see his teammate has rose through the ranks. I mean, it's a really weird order behind. I actually haven't really looked at it before. I know I commented earlier on that there was some unexpected riders, but Fanati's P6, Riccardo Rossi's P4, Stefano Neppa's P5. What is going on behind? Like, where's Holgado? We could do with that championship sort of standings coming up again and showing us where everybody is, but yeah, for some unbeknownst reason, there's just a bunch of random AI in the other positions, because Fanati, again, was another rider right at the back. I mean, if you look at 3rd, 4th, 5th and 6th, they've pretty much been nowhere all season. Except maybe Riccardo Rossi. Rossi's been there in the top 10 in a few rounds, to be fair. He's been there or thereabouts, but Neppa's kind of been at the back all the time. Obviously, Fanati's been towards the back. Onshu has generally been towards the back, even though he shouldn't be. I think he should probably be where he is now in most of the races, or at least battling with that front group with like Masia and Sasaki and those riders. That was about the best we've done that chicane. We found a few tenths of a second there. We could be on for a personal best lap of the race if we can keep it together. I think usually I'm going down a gear there, but I just rolled the throttle just a touch and works perfectly. Onshu's just taken second place actually as we were talking about that. Moreira gets it back. But Onshu is right with him. He must be giving him a fight. I'll tell you what, we'll have to have a look at the map when I get the opportunity, but it's kind of hard through this section on the track. Yeah, you can see those guys actually miles ahead of the rest of the pack, so Moreira is probably going to finish 3rd at worst, because of course, on the penultimate lap of the race, I didn't even realise that. It's just sort of flown by, to be honest. So Onshu has got it back again and up towards the line. It looks like we are going to get our new fastest lap of the race, 1 minute 40.5, and there we go, we get the championship standings. Holgado's on 7 points, so he must literally be in like P9 there. Obviously 16 points for Moreira because he's been overtaken by Onshu, so actually still only 8 points the championship lead in the championship there. Of course the championship lead is going to be in the championship, but only 8 points is the lead, so it's not going to be a massive swing like I thought it was going to be. There must only be like a point between them currently then, because obviously Moreira's on 16, he's on 7, so there's a difference of like 9 points there. So I think maybe Holgado's leading it currently. I can't remember exactly which one of them was leading it, but I know it's like only a couple of points between them, so it is pretty damn close. Looks like that's about right in terms of the gap. I said we'd be getting to about 18 seconds by the end, and there we go, 18 seconds. Unfortunately, not going to quite get to 20, although sometimes the gap does go up a little bit when you have races like this. When you go over the line, the gap does increase further, because of course they lose more time in that last sector, and it's not actually updated yet because they haven't got through it. So we'll have to see when we get down towards this penultimate turn. We're going to get our second race win of the season in the same style. It's a shame. I'd rather win it on a last lap scrap, you know, than win it in a massive domination like this. It's a bit boring to watch, so I do apologise, guys, but nothing I could do about the AI. And Moreira seems to actually got back past Onshu, so that could be a pretty crucial overtake for the championship. But here we go, then we take our second race win of the season here in Mandalika. So something a bit strange must have happened with those simulated times on the final lap, because you can see Onshu actually ended up in second place. Of course, it's possible that he overtook Moreira again, but you can see he's quite a bit in front of him. He's like over a second ahead, which doesn't make any sense, since they were literally just battling. So unless he like punted Moreira wide, well, it is Onshu, so maybe he did punt Moreira wide then. But we win the race then. Onshu in second position, Diogo Moreira 3rd, Riccardo Rossi 4th, Stefano Neppa 5th, and Romano Fanati in 6th position. What a weird order that is there. Just the only guy that really makes sense to be there as the AI is Diogo. The rest of them is such a weird order. Holgado then ends up in 9th place as we predicted, and I guess Ortola was down in 13th place there then. I knew he'd be towards the bottom end of the points, but not a bad salvage job from himself. But 40 seconds behind. He was like 20 seconds behind Moreira. These guys were miles clear of everybody else, actually. I mean, you can see they're like 10 seconds ahead of Neppa. So, yeah, it's so strange that like the races where they are dominant like this, they just stretch out. I think the AI do rubber band towards the player a bit. I think when you're miles out in front, it stretches the pack a lot more than when you're a bit further behind. Because, again, that happened at Portimao when we were fighting for the win, for example, pulling away at the front. The pack was much more stretched. Same with Catalunya as well. It does seem like when you're at the front with a top AI rather than battling in a pack, the pack really is stretched out and there's some big gaps between the different riders. But in the championship standings then, I was actually right. Holgado was leading by a point because he's now 8 points down on Moreira, because of course he gained 9 points on him there with that performance. But that overtake by Onshu could end up being crucial because it is so close between the two of these. I don't know how they've kept it so close for so long, because there was actually quite a big gap by Moreira at one point. He had like a race win over Holgado, but Holgado actually managed to bring it back, which is pretty impressive in itself. I think Moreira had a couple of poor races and Holgado had a couple of good ones. Ortola's now 62 points behind, which seems crazy when you think about how they were trading wins at the start of the season. I think Ortola had like 2 wins out of like the first 3 races. Like, he was definitely the fastest of the 3, but he really has tailed off, 62 points behind now. We're only 8 points behind him. It's actually looking pretty possible that we can beat him in this turning point, which is absolutely ridiculous if you ask me. There's no way we should have been able to pull 35 points back on him, but such a poor couple of races for him. A crash in Motegi, a poor result based on his bad qualifying position here. It really has opened things up, and now all we need to do is win and have somebody between us, and that's okay for us to actually beat him in the turning point. Now, that might not happen. Might be a race where we can't win again, which I'm hoping it is. Hoping it's a bit more of a competitive AI round, but chances are it is going to be one that we are able to dominate. So, of course, then he's 62 points behind. We're 8 points behind him in 4th place, 70 points off of the top guys. 41 points clear of Sasaki behind now then, so absolutely no threat from behind. We're not fighting for this 4th place anymore. We are fully focused on the 3rd place. Obviously the championship's out the window with it being a 70 point gap. There's no way we're going to bring that one back, even if they do have a bad couple of races, because I don't know how many rounds are left, but it isn't that many. It really isn't, and some of the better tracks that AI are probably coming up as well. So a few changes then in the Teams Championship. Leopard move ahead of CF Moto. Obviously they got a 1-2 last time out at Motegi. An okay result here. Pretty bad race for CF Moto. Now moves them 2 points ahead. And we actually move ahead of the Husqvarna team as well, because we're now really stretching away from Sasaki. We can sort of balance out Vaya's points, because again, I don't think Ogden's really picked up any. So that was the Indonesian Grand Prix then. Hopefully you did enjoy it. It was a little bit boring, I do apologise, but nothing I can do about the AI performance. We should have actually ranked up to Pro when we get back to the Career Hub. We should have got enough reputation points, so that'll be something there. And of course we'll have our social media messages as well. So we'll head back to the Career Hub now then and see what awaits us there. So there we go, then we've ranked up to Pro. It actually said Moto 2 access unlocked, so we actually weren't going to be able to go to Moto 2 if we didn't achieve that one. So it's a good job we did, because there's not that many races left, and you see, you don't actually gain that much reputation, and we're only like halfway to remarkable. We're at 41,000, you need 80,000, so basically everything we've gained so far, we need to get again to get to the next level, and we only gained 2,400 for winning the race, leading every lap, getting the victory. Obviously meeting the team objective as well, so we actually didn't gain too many at all. It is interesting that we gained some extra objectives there. Pole position, GP victory, and perfect weekend. And here we are then back at the Career Hub, and we only have one social media message. It appears to be from Xavi Artigas. He says, the race in Mandalika was tough. We finished behind Biker, but we know we're able to close the gap, and we'll try to already at Phillip Island. Of course, he was my championship rival for quite a long time. We can say it was a good race. We need to focus to keep this gap over the next few races. Or we can say I don't think I finished ahead of direct rivals by coincidence. I'd like to have more competition in every race. Hopefully I won't be bored in the next race. Well, to be fair, that is actually true. That is actually true, to be fair. So I think we're going to say that to him. And that's actually annoyed him a little bit, but tell you what, that's a bit of a slap in the face for the developers as well, because the AI were boring, and I was a bit bored in that race, if I'm being completely honest. But there we go then, guys. That was the Indonesian Grand Prix. We've made a new enemy, so if anything, we've achieved a little bit of something in that episode. We have actually allowed ourselves to close up a lot to Ortola, so it actually does mean it's quite possible for us to beat him in the turning point, which is completely ridiculous considering how far we were behind him at the start of it. But he's had 2 very, very poor races. We've had 1 okay race and 1 fantastic race, and that's allowed us to close right up to him. And top 3 at the championship would be fantastic considering how far we were behind at one point. But we'll have to see how the championship actually plays out. And of course, we've got Phillip Island next, a very high-speed circuit. It has been a pretty good one in the Moto 3 class in the past, so we should have some decent pace there. But you never know, it could be a track where they have improved the AI quite a lot. And corner speed is not exactly my strongest point, so maybe the AI will be able to gain a little bit back on us through some of the long corners at Phillip Island, but I guess you'll have to see that in the next episode. So that pretty much brings this one to a close. So I hope you guys have enjoyed that one. If you are new to the channel, please do like the video and subscribe. It really does help me out, and you'll get to see plenty more MotoGP 23 game content in your subscription feed. So if you like MotoGP 23 game content, this is definitely the place to be. But like I said, I hope you did enjoy that one. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. I hope you're all staying safe, and I shall see you in the next one.